what, it's not even like a what do you deserve, but what do you believe that you are owed for the work, for the effort, for the investment, and what are the systems in place that are designed to prevent you from getting that?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to No Script, an unscripted conversation about theater's best scripts. I'm Jackson. I'm here with Jacob, and we are underway. We're on episode, I think, 3 of the season. We're kind of clipping into the proper programming for the season. So it's exciting to kind of be underway once again in this season 16 of No Script, the podcast. And exciting to return to August Wilson today. Today we're talking about Two Trains Running, and I'm excited to jump into the conversation about that.
Yeah, August Wilson is, probably the American playwright. I mean, certainly of the last 40 years or so. There's a group of them, the Eugene O'Neill, we're talking about August Wilson. Eugene O'Neill, Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams. It's early to mid 20th century. And August Wilson really has a place as the dramatist of the late 20th century. People have called August Wilson the Shakespeare of America, which is obviously an incredible, honor and observation for his attentiveness to language, his documenting and use of the mythology of America that surrounded him. Of course, I think most people know that August Wilson wrote this century cycle, these plays that take place in Pittsburgh across the decades of the 20th century. Two Trains Running is the play that takes place in the 60s of this cycle, which for a group of plays that really documents the African-American experience. So, you might say, I don't love that phrase, but I'll choose to use it now, across the 20th century. The play that documents the 60s is, obviously, that's a pretty important play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in the middle of the civil rights movement, in the middle, certainly Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X play a passing role in this play, and the moments of civil rights protests and also riots associated with that, and a lot of the kind of urban renewal projects that are going on to various pain and effects as a result of that. So yeah, it's a very important play in that cycle to be highlighting that particular historical moment within American society.
And listen, it's also got, I think, the best title of any of the century cycle plays. Two Trains Running is a freaking good title, man.
It's a good title. Absolutely. It's just esoteric enough that it's gets
and you get it in the play, right? You get to have that moment in the play where the character says two trains running aloud, and you're like, yeah,
there it is.
That's it. I got it. I understand. It's great. I got the really awesome chance to see the Goodman Theater's production of Two Trains Running, I think in 2015, as a college student at that time, and to see August Wilson's play, one of them, produced. The Goodman is the highest level of theater in America. I sort of think Broadway is kind of a different category, but in terms of professional theater, the Goodman is one of the largest organizations in the country, and so it was an amazing sort of experience to be able to have, and it was a really fabulous production, and it has stuck with me across the years. Even though, I've read many of the other August Wilson plays, I've seen many of the other productions, but that production of that play really stuck with me, and Two Trains Running has held kind of an interest for me since then as one of the, I don't know if it's my favorite of the century cycles, but it's certainly in the group of them that I'm especially fond of these plays, and there's a lot. It's a storytelling play, I think, which is interesting. It's just as full of big speeches as any of the other century cycle plays. Characters step forward and speak for 2 or 3 pages at a time in the text to tell these really evocative stories of being elsewhere in the world and now gathered together here in this diner.
Or like the history in the storytellings really plays a big role in it. There is like an overarching plot. This will be a difficulty when I get to the summary. There is an overarching plot, certainly, that sort of drives the action of the play. But so much of what this play is about is listening to the characters tell their stories, and it seems like each of the characters has like a really interesting story that we could have a whole play about.
I mean, many of the August Wilson plays are this way.
Yeah.
But Two Trains Running is kind of the ultimate ensemble play. I mean, this is a play about a close-knit group of people who, surprise, surprise, are intruded on by an outsider,
Right.
somebody who's new to town. But it's really about all of them and the journey. I mean, Memphis and Sterling are the people whose journeys really carry us from beginning to end, and they're each of their individual journeys in the masterful dramatic crafting of August Wilson coincide to conclude is maybe not the right word, but to resolve this part of their journey at the same moment, at the end. And probably if you're directing Two Trains Running, deciding between Memphis and Sterling, who do you believe is the protagonist of this play? Whose play is it? Is going to tell you a little bit about how you construct that ending moment, where the emphasis lands. And that, is this a stranger comes to town story? Or is this a Sterling story of being on a journey into this close-knit group of people back home after being in the penitentiary?
Yeah, a familiar stranger comes to town, perhaps.
Yes, yeah. He knows. Yeah, he knows Risa, so that is certainly part of it. Well, we so much to talk about because the August Wilson plays have just incredible characters, and talking, at and around the characters is certainly one of the things that we love to do. So we're looking forward to that. Before we get there, though, I do want to invite everybody to head on over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/noscriptpodcast, all one word, no hyphen, no underscore, patreon.com/noscriptpodcast. That's where you can become a supporter of the show. We have an incredible group of supporters over there, folks who contribute financially to make No Script happen. We love to do this podcast. It's been an incredible part of our life and our theater engagement, and it's just great. But it's not free, and it's not possible to do without the financial support of our folks on Patreon. So if that's you, if you're listening and you're a supporter, huge thank you to you. You make doing this possible. We couldn't be more grateful. If that's not you yet, I just encourage you to consider it. Check out the Patreon page. We've had, since the beginning of our Patreon page, the lowest tier is just $1 a month, $12 over the course of the year. And even at that level, you are contributing massively to the fees, to the time that go into running a podcast like this. So thanks to those folks. That's not you. Check it out. You can see the different perks and how it all works over at Patreon, I'm sure. See us over there, patreon.com/noscriptpodcast. And now back to the script.
Here we go.
So, as I said in the introduction, this play is part of the Century Cycle. It's the play that documents the 60s in the Hill District in Pittsburgh. This play premiered in 1990 at Yale Rep. Directed by, the incredible, the famous Lloyd Richards, who directed a lot of the early productions of August Wilson's plays. Very interestingly, in that original production, Samuel L. Jackson played Wolfe, which is kind of the ultimate Samuel L. Jackson role, isn't it?
It is a good role.
You can see the way that he uses language, the way that he uses his stature in the community, the name Wolfe. And you're sort of like, maybe this role was written for Samuel L. Jackson. And the great Larry Fishburne played Sterling, and ended up carrying that role onto Broadway, which I'll talk about in just a moment. As with many of the August Wilson plays, after the initial world premiere, many repertory theaters pick it up. So Old Globe in California in 91, Seattle Rep in the 1991 season. And then there is the 1992 Broadway premiere at the Walter Kerr Theater. Also directed by Lloyd Richards. Did not have Samuel L. Jackson, but Lawrence Fishburne still stuck around, played Sterling, and ended up winning a Tony Award for that production, and a Drama Desk Award. Having not seen that production, obviously I was not alive at that point in time, that tells me, I think, that in that original production, Sterling's story was considered the protagonist story. I may be speaking a little out of turn here, having not seen it, but he won the Tony Award for actor rather than like supporting. So that to me tells me that they were sort of angling for that to be the centerpiece role of the play, which is interesting. I think in my various engagements and readings with the plays, I would probably lean towards Memphis, but that very well could be incorrect. And I certainly acknowledge that Lloyd Richards knows quite a bit more about it than me. 1998 at Fort Wayne Civic Theater. 1998, a group called the Black Liberated Arts Center in Oklahoma did the play. DePaul University in 2006, the Old Globe in 2007, and then a pair of productions, one in 2008 and one, I'll skip ahead in time just to catch it, another production by the Pittsburgh Players Theater in just in August of 2025. So they are sort of reviving it amongst this group of performers in Pittsburgh, both in 2008 and then in 2025, just a few months ago. Then in 2011, the Penumbra Theater in Minnesota. Oregon Shakespeare Festival did the play in 2013, and they have, Oregon Shakespeare Festival is one of like the 3 or 4 best theaters in the country for their online materials. They are A+ at creating video content, readable content, production stills, design journeys. They put a lot of stuff online for their productions, which makes it really, really great for especially for conversations like this. But then I also teach theater. We're trying to find ways to show productions to students a lot. And the way that Oregon Shakespeare Festival is able to do interviews and backstage tours and discussions with the director and all kinds of great stuff around these productions is just so valuable for documenting theater, which is a live and always like disappearing art. Once it's done, it's done. So like, what do we have in the aftermath? Oregon Shakespeare Festival stuff is great. So you can see online incredible stuff about their production, just incredible stuff. If you're interested at all in this play, I encourage you to check it out. They've documented just some fabulous stuff. 2013, also at Two River Theater in New Jersey, at Roundhouse Theater in 2014, and the Goodman Theater production in 2015 that I was able to see in Chicago. Arden Theater also did the play in 2015 in Philly. Seattle Rep did another production in 2018, as well as Arena Stage in DC and the Weston Theater Company in Vermont. And then some regional theaters, Milwaukee Rep, Cincy Playhouse in the Park did it in 2019, Black Rep in St. Louis in 2020. And then in a sort of sad production note, in 2020, Players by the Sea, who's a company in Jacksonville, did a production that was unfortunately cut short by COVID. And then we skip those dark years and we come back in 22 for the Court Theater's production in Chicago, which is another sort of major production that has awesome online material, including great interviews with the cast. Check that out for sure. 2022 at Marin Theater in California. And then 2025, just for like the first half of the year, a group called the Acting Company, who usually tours 2 plays in rep, did a national tour of 2 Trains Running. And you can see all their stops along the way as you look around for this play online, and you see all the different regional theaters, universities, community centers that they did this play in. I had no idea this tour was going on. That's awesome. I think I don't even know like how this makes me feel exactly, but it was in rep with the Comedy of Errors, which is just like, I think that is like, wow, that those are 2 interesting plays to do in rep. Yeah. I don't know. That's an interesting one. I don't know what to make of it. Hartford Stage in Connecticut in 2025 as well. That production by the Pittsburgh Players Theater Company that I already mentioned. And now, going on more or less right now, depending on when you're listening to this episode, but February, March of 2026, what looks to be an astoundingly great production at the Beck Center for the Arts in Ohio. If you're anywhere near there, you can go check out a production of 2 Trains Running. If you are in Fort Myers, Florida, there's also a production, I believe, running right about now, February 26th, at Theater Conspiracy in Fort Myers. And in the fall of this year, in October, later this year, Morgan State University in Baltimore will be doing the play. 2 Trains Running won the New York Critics Circle Award in '92 for Best American Play and was a Pulitzer Prize finalist in 1992, the year that Kentucky Cycle one. As with all the August Wilson plays, they have these storied, long histories. I know, especially for Black actors in America, the canon of characters that these plays create become part of the legacy of the American stage, and it's hard to capture all of that in one short context section. It's like, I'll be the one now to compare him to Shakespeare. It's like doing a context section for a Shakespeare play. It's impossible to capture the stories, the magnitude of productions and impact that these plays have. But that hopefully gives you a little bit of an overview of the life of Two Trains Running, which again, A+ title. Can't say it enough.
Can't say it enough. Well, excited to jump into the conversation about it. I am going to summarize it here, which seemed, again, like this play in particular, with all the storytelling that goes on, it's tough to summarize and feels wrong to summarize in some ways. But I'm going to do the best that I can. As we jump into the summary, though, worth noting, as we typically do when engaging certainly plays that fall outside of our own cultural context, we're two white guys talking about this play, and that's going to necessarily inform the conversation that we have from our particular perspective. But this is a play about a historically Black neighborhood, an all-Black cast, and particular stories about the Black community in the 60s of America. So with that, we're going to be sure to link a number of good links into the conversation as well, extend the conversation out, would welcome other conversation around this particular play that broadens the perspective, and we hope that we're a hub for enabling more conversation around plays like this. So
yeah, in the episode notes, you'll find a couple of different conversations from hopefully other viewpoints about the play that we'll put in there. We usually like to do interviews, reviews, other things that we can capture. There's usually great dramaturgical material out there. So we'll hopefully try to point you in another direction as well, just to get another perspective on the play. And, if you want to stop listening to ours and check out somebody else's, we're all fine with that. There'll be some great podcast interview conversations that you can find in the episode notes too.
Absolutely. That said, I'm going to jump into some summary of this play real quick. This play takes place, as we've kind of already said, in the Hill District of Pittsburgh, a historically Black neighborhood in 1969, and centers around a crew of characters. I'm going to just introduce our characters real quick because I don't know how much I'm going to say about them in the summaries. I'll just plot the big plot points, but I wanted to introduce the characters to us as we start out. We've got,
as you do that, I think it's like a great way to think about Two Trains Running. I forget which interview I was listening to that talked about this, is to think about it as like kind of a precursor to that late 90s, early 2000s group of television sitcoms that all take place at a bar or a coffee shop.
Yeah.
And you have the regulars. Like, this play is that.
Absolutely.
It is. We have this restaurant, and then we have these people that are always in the restaurant. And the somewhat irritable owner who's like, why are you always in my restaurant?
I'm trying to make some money here. Absolutely. Yeah, no, this place centers on a restaurant. People come in and out the door of the restaurant and interact with each other on like a daily basis. This is like a community hub where these folks all find each other and share life together. So we've got Memphis, who's the owner of the restaurant, bought it years ago, kind of had a good moment where he had enough money to buy it and kind of was able to purchase it, and has had it for years and years and years. He's had a bit of a rough time recently. He recently was divorced, lost his relationship with his wife, and the restaurant has come on hard times, but he's making do as best he can. We also have Risa, who is really she runs the restaurant pretty much, at least in the context of the play. She's the one doing most of the work, getting the coffee ready, getting everything served, and is kind of a constant presence in every one of these scenes as we interact with everyone. We've got Sterling. Sterling is a member of the community who was arrested, went away to the penitentiary is what they call it, and is just recently released from jail and coming back into the community. We have Holloway, who's kind of an older character, kind of a wise voice in the community, perhaps. Someone who's been around for a long time, knows a lot of the stories, has a lot of wisdom to share, and kind of chimes into a lot of different situations.
Yeah, Holloway is the character in the play that is most closely associated with the two religious figures in the play. There's as with many August Wilson plays, the offstage characters are almost as important as the onstage ones. And there's two offstage characters who kind of represent or example very different approaches to faith, to spirituality, to religion, to a connection with a higher plane of being, or whatever you want to call it. And Holloway is certainly more closely associated with one, and Risa is more closely associated with another. But Holloway is really good at bringing in these other perspectives. These like, here's what you should do, here's who you should see.
Yeah. Here's the connection point. Here's a way to, like, if you want to try to address that problem, here's who you would connect with, or here's a way to solve it. We also have Wolf. Wolf kind of is a numbers runner, kind of runs the lottery in town and takes people's bets on numbers, or takes people's numbers and their money in association with that. He runs that system out of the restaurant often. It's kind of his hub for where he gets phone calls from the folks who run that lottery, and so he's often in the restaurant, kind of taking people's numbers, taking people's bets, and paying out as well, which becomes a pivotal part of the play. And then we have West. West is the funeral director. He lives right across the street from the restaurants, or his business is right across the street from the restaurant. He's also pretty well known as someone who owns a lot of the buildings on the block. He's kind of someone who has long wanted to buy Memphis's restaurant, sort of didn't realize Memphis bought the restaurant from the previous owner and tried to buy it from him quickly afterwards. But he's kind of been a long time member of the community who owns a lot of the buildings and is interested in owning this one as well. And then we also have Hambone, who is a character who is in the area. He only speaks one line of text for the most part. Sterling eventually teaches him a couple other words as well. But he has some sort of cognitive disability. He's only speaks one phrase the whole time. And that phrase is, "He gonna give me my ham." Now his history is through some years ago, he built a fence for the meat market that's right across the street from the restaurant, Lutz's Meat Market, and at least the way the story goes, is they never paid him what he was promised, which was a whole ham for the work of building that fence.
Pay attention to that theme of being given what you were promised.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes perhaps the central motif idea of Two Trains Running.
Yeah, getting what you deserve, getting what you're owed, and what you're willing to do in order to do that, and what happens when it doesn't come your way. Also, two other characters that Jacob kind of teased as well that never appear on stage, but are talked about often, are Prophet Samuel, who recently dies within like the very recent, is kind of the like timeline signifier for the play. We know that he died fairly recently, and folks are going to the funeral, going to the visitation, and by the end of the play, he's buried. Pretty close to the end of the play, he is buried. So time gets a little wibbly wobbly, but it's short enough that all of that happens within that span of time. So he's a pretty prominent member of the community, well known for like speaking prophetically into the community, certainly around the rights of Black folks in the community, and certainly around faith in the community. Also known, or at least critiqued occasionally, for receiving money from the community, and that's certainly part of what they are evaluating around his witness in the community.
Yeah, even this group of characters in the restaurant have very different feelings about Prophet Samuel amongst them. Risa, at one point, even displays her membership card for his congregation, is very, believes in him as a prophetic witness, as a religious voice. Somebody like Memphis, on the other hand, has quite a few things to say about somebody who's tricked people, Memphis's words, not mine, but tricked people into giving him money,
yep.
On a weekly basis, tithing, quote unquote, right? And so there's August Wilson is pretty good at writing these stories that don't have any one perspective that dominates the play, and the group, there's many people that think many different things about Prophet Samuel and the truth and reliability of his witness.
For sure. Then the other character that's off stage as well is Aunt Esther, kind of an enigmatic, similar sage-like presence. She is talked about as being 300 and some years old, with a lot of wisdom. A lot of people are kind of sent to her to kind of try to deal with a problem that they're trying to figure out. One of the recurring motifs is she tells people to go throw $20 into the river. And that's part of the sort of like solve of the problem. She offers wisdom and also tells them to go throw money in the river. There's lots of cool things that could be in association with that. It'd be interesting to talk about that. We'll see if we get to that part of the conversation today. But she's also a pillar of the community. This community, the given circumstances of this particular community is that the city of Pittsburgh has decided to put in a stadium into this area, and so they're buying up all the land and basically raising the area, taking all these businesses that have been a long time standing in the area, paying out some amount of money to them, and essentially removing the folks from that area of town in order for this stadium to go in. Really tough.
Yeah, these are, of course, the urban renewal projects that took place all over the country. And I hesitate to use the language, but I do just want to document the racism. These urban renewal projects were also called the Negro removal projects, right? It is to take land and historic neighborhoods from Black communities and replace them with commercial areas that serve largely white folks.
And in the course of this play, this decision has sort of already been made. We know it's coming. Memphis is kind of like trying to debate about whether, or wondering how long it's going to take, but we know it's coming down the line. There isn't, the drama is not whether or not this is going to happen, but what Memphis believes he is owed as a result of this happening. So a way to think of the action of this play is Memphis goes about the process of trying to get what he is owed for his business. We kind of start the play with him talking about how he needs to go down to the city and he's not going to accept less than $25,000 for it. And he goes down to the city and the city says, we'll pay you $15,000 for it. We also know West comes in and makes a similar offer, $15,000 for the restaurant. I'll pay you $15,000 for the restaurant, and because he's got a different racket going, he thinks that he can sell all of his sort of holdings in the block for a more collective sum of money, and so he's willing to pay him the $15,000 as long as he gets the land himself. Memphis kind of goes through the process of saying no to that $15,000, sticks to his guns, gets a new lawyer, pushes on that for a good chunk of the play, tries to get the city to give him what he believes he is owed, $25,000. Another way to kind of track the progress of this play is Sterling arriving into town. Sterling kind of comes into the restaurant, and Sterling's looking for a job. He's looking for work in the area. He's talking to Wolf. He's talking to Memphis. He's pitching all these ideas, but he's also bringing in news of rallies that are happening in association with Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., the civil rights movement. He's inviting people to rallies all the time and trying to like invite people into this movement, especially in association with this with everyone losing their neighborhoods, trying to claim some power and claim some representation and claim the ability to have power in their community.
Yeah, and of course, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X had been assassinated by this point in history, and so some of this is documenting the civil unrest that comes in the aftermath of those killings. But again, characters in this play don't have a uniform perspective. Memphis, tells Sterling, this is not a quote, but this is pretty much the general idea. Like, what is the point in celebrating the birthday of someone who's dead? We're just doing these rallies to feel good, and we're just going to have another rally next week and another rally next week, and nothing is ever going to come of this. There's no change that comes from these endless parties, essentially, is how Memphis phrases them. And there's just a fabulous scene of drama in the late play where Sterling is trying to teach Hambone some new words, and he teaches him like chants that they might use at the rally, that they start screaming back and forth each other. Hambone, I want my ham, and Sterling with all these various Black Power and pro Malcolm chants. It's just awesome. I mean, it's just a great physical, visceral volume. There's joy in it. Hard to craft better human exchange than that kind of thing. It's just surprising. It's weird. It's awesome.
Yeah, along the way, Sterling kind of strikes up this friendship with Hambone, and they start to try to like do some things together, work on things together. He's trying to figure out a way to be sure that he gets his ham back from the meat market across the street. And then as well, Sterling also strikes up a relationship with Risa as well, and they're kind of negotiating. They knew each other when they were kids, and they're kind of talking through like whether or not they want to be together. Eventually, they wind up sort of together in a scene in the diner, So there's this kind of like constant wondering how Sterling is going to land. There's other characters as well who like take bets about how long he's going to last in the community, and whether or not he's
back to jail.
Yeah, whether or not he's going to end up back in jail. But another pivotal part of that is he's trying to get back on his feet. And so he runs the numbers as well with Wolf, and he happens to strike a winning number. In fact, Risa gives him a winning number. I believe it's 281.
I think it's 781.
780. Thank you, 781. He manages to get a number that hits pretty well. The payout is somewhere in the thousands of dollars. I think 1,200 or something like that, somewhere in the region of $1,200 to $2,000.
Which, I mean, you just try to translate the money of that. Like if Memphis is getting, he wants 25 grand for his restaurant in this block, like 1,200 is a pretty significant chunk of money.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and of course, not of course, but as is the injustice of this particular moment, because so many people, supposedly because so many people hit that number, they half the amount. So Wolf has to kind of gear up for telling him the bad news of that. While you should have won this much money, you're actually only getting half of it. And so Sterling kind of reacts to that injustice, goes up and tries to find the folks who run the lottery to try to tell them what for. And in addition, another injustice occurs within the community. Death is a big theme of this play. Lots of people are dying. West continuously comes into the restaurant and talks about who he's laying out for the week and who he's burying for the week. We've got Prophet Samuel dead, a lot of visitations going on for that. We also, though, kind of late in the play, we find out that Hambone has passed away. Seems to be passed away at home, sort of at his table. But he dies, and that's another piece that kind of like pushes against Sterling, that he never got his ham. So all these stories are happening. Tough to kind of zoom in on one. Excited for the conversation afterwards. Just to tell you about the end of the play, though, because these two characters kind of hold the end of the play, Memphis and Sterling. Memphis returns from going downtown. He's hired a different lawyer, and a white lawyer, and he in fact gets $35,000 for his land from the city. The city offers to pay him $35,000, which he accepts. And so he kind of returns from that, having kind of finally gotten what he's due, and kind of wrestling with what that means, right? What that means in association with having to leave this land. He's been trying to figure out a way to get back home this whole time, back down to Mississippi. That's where the title of the play is. There's two trains running back and forth from Pittsburgh to Mississippi. So he's trying to figure out a way to get back home to land that he owns down there, that he got kicked off of years and years ago.
In like a pretty violent encounter that may have become a lynching if he hadn't like run away. Like that kind of racist encounter where white people stole his land.
Yeah. And so he's kind of wandering around now that he has this money. How does he get back down there? Maybe go back and try to get the land that he owes. He has the deed to it, etc. We also get a final moment with Sterling. Sort of a long monologue from Memphis. We kind of like, this could be the last monologue of the play, right? He's kind of reflecting on getting this money and what he's going to do, how he's going to celebrate, who he's going to support as a result of receiving this money, and trying to like take care of the community as best he can, as much as he acknowledges that he's leaving, and likely will leave soon. The final moment of the play, though, is Sterling comes in. We hear sounds of essentially like windows breaking off stage, some sort of attempt at the meat market across the street, and Sterling emerges into the room holding a large ham, and says to West, who's in the room, "I want you to put this in Hambone's casket. I want him to be buried with this. He's owed this, essentially." And so that kind of last moment of the play, Sterling sort of commits this crime across the street, and carries back over this ham, a beat of trying to find justice for Hambone even after Hambone has passed away. That's where I'm going to stop, because there's so much to talk about.
But I think the implication is that means he's going back to jail.
Absolutely.
Right? Like the final image is of Memphis having gotten the money that he feels he's owed, above and beyond, really, and Sterling probably going back to jail for stealing this ham to give to him. But I also think it's notable that when Memphis walks in that final scene, one of the things he does now that he's rich is that he gives Risa a bunch of money to buy flowers for Hambone's casket. So both Memphis and Sterling have this thing to offer to Hambone's casket in the final scene, and it comes from obviously these very different places and how they got it, and the fortune or ill fortune that represented the things they were able to give. There's been a long motif from the very beginning scene of the play when they're talking about Prophet Samuel and his casket about like what people bring into the caskets with them, what people are buried with. And in general, the theme of death and the fact that the only rich person, any of these people know in their community is the guy that runs the funeral home in a black neighborhood, and that he can hardly keep he has the West, the funeral home owner, is busy all the time, which, essentially the implication is that black folks are dying all the time in this community, and that's how he makes his money. So there's this ongoing motif of death and burial, these questions around what this is maybe a more simple version of this question that I really think is in the play, but what do you take with you? What do you carry with you? What does the community allow you to take with you versus try to hold on to? And so the final picture of Memphis able to buy, just out of a small bit of his now abundant money, beautiful flowers for this casket, whereas Sterling has to go rob and steal a ham and probably get himself sent back to jail. It's an image that lands that and this is maybe a dumb thing to say, but it probably doesn't land in a different play. But in this one, the way the events have been constructed, the conversations about death and burial, the conversations about luck and justice, the fact that there's winning the lotto is a central feature of this play, luck and fortune and things that are outside of your control. And you end it with these two men, each with something to offer for the burial, but coming from very different places of luck and fortune and justice.
Yeah. The fascinating one of the fascinating things about the title of this play is that it can be literally about the trains running between.
Sure.
But then also I think it also ties into what you're kind of chatting about right now, Jacob, this way that you live life and way that you move towards death and what you take with you. And this isn't an idea that's unique to me. I got this idea from an interview that the Hartford Stage did with the director of that production, who I believe is Gilbert McCauley. And he kind of talks about this idea that how you live life is really absolutely a part of this play. Who you do community with, how you support community, what you do as you try to seek what you are owed in life, and then how you move towards death well, and what's important to do before you die, and what happens if injustice persists after death happens. And I think that's some of what eventually I think pushes Sterling to do this act, is it can't end this way for Hambone, that he never got the ham that he was owed. So I think those are the questions that are being asked, is how do you ride these two trains? How do you live well but also move towards what is coming with integrity and with a hope towards justice?
Yeah, in that same Hartford Stage interview, the director talks about this idea. I think he gets it from his grandpa, this phrase. I'm not totally sure, but he talks about the theme or the major question or the ideas of the play being getting what's coming to you, that phrase. And apparently one of his relatives, I can't quite remember the details, used to say as a greeting and a goodbye, I hope you get what's coming to you, which obviously has many different meanings and is a really delightful phrase for how layered it is. But that's really it's a very provocative observation about two trains running and about this question of getting what you're owed, getting what's coming to you. So many of the plot points are really that central question. I mean, what is Hambone doing in this play? Trying to get the ham that's owed to him.
Yeah.
What is Memphis doing in this play? Trying to get the money for his building that he believes is owed to him. And then also setting himself up to go back to Jackson and get the land that is owed to him, that is coming to him. What is a Sterling trying to do when he buys the gun and he goes to confront the mob family?
Yeah, it's like a mob family that runs the numbers.
Runs the lotto, the numbers. He's trying to get the money that's owed to him. And so there is this, it's not even a what do you deserve, but what do you believe that you are owed for the work, for the effort, for the investment. And what are the systems in place that are designed to prevent you from getting that? I mean, like I mentioned when you were doing your summary that part of Memphis's story of getting the money from his for his building is that when he goes originally and they lowball him, he's brought a black lawyer with him. And he decides to go and engage with the justice system in this city that is, you know, supposed to be the justice system of a city, supposed to be fair. But he takes a white lawyer with him, and all of a sudden he gets the money above and beyond the money.
More than double.
That he believed.
Yeah.
Right. So it is, I mean, tracking. Wolf tells a story in the middle of the play that I mean, I don't know, but is so specific and kind of heartbreaking that I have to believe it might be a real story that August Wilson had heard about. He was just walking across the street and some police officers were in a chase for somebody else. It had nothing to do with him, but he just got kind of run over by these police officers as they were running by him. But they end up charging him with obstruction and sticking him in jail for months, and he couldn't make bail. So he just sat in jail for months while he was waiting for his trial. And when he gets to trial, the judge throws the case out because it's obviously ridiculous at its face. But he spent months in jail waiting trial.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the amount of stories that rotate through this, there's a number, like probably double digits, if I'm guessing, of other...
It's a storytelling play,
absolutely,
which is part of its delight.
Of other named characters. Like, they talk about other members of their community, they bring in all these other stories, and it really is this sort of like, this steeping in the story of this community that happens as a result of this play. You track the action that's happening, certainly, but so much of this play, I imagine, I'm envious of you seeing it at the Goodman. I've only ever read it. This play would be phenomenal to see and to kind of steep in the language, but also the stories that are being told by these characters and how much they care for each other and their community in the middle of like a really awful moment.
Yeah, there's a sentence that I have marked down that I think it struck me as I was reading it, that it really is about that. They're talking about, this is towards the middle of the play, various times throughout the play, they have these kind of long, I actually think fairly interesting discussions about how the economy works. There's a great one early in the play about how all of these white land and business owners are able to hire for very cheap black workers to build them things. And then the black workers, when the thing is built, they no longer have the income, but the white families and landowners have the infrastructure of the thing that they built. And I mean, of course, listen, is that in some way like a socialist Marxist economic analysis of the world, the means of production? Yes, it is. But August Wilson smuggles it in to some degree, although there are many accusations about Mr. Wilson's politics. But so regardless, they have these great economic discussions throughout. They're just very, I think, very keen and very aware. So they're in the middle of one about the justice system. This is where Wolf tells the story of getting stuck in jail. But they're telling this story because another offstage character, a friend of theirs, I guess, his wife died suddenly in the night. And kind of in grief and shock, he goes out and has to steal her address to be buried in. And the way they tell the story is that he wasn't even in his right mind, really. He was just lost after the death of his wife and trying to do something. But the police catch him and put him in jail. And so now they're like, the community is raising money to try to post bond so he can attend his wife's funeral. So they're talking about all these economic and justice systems that are totally this group of people in this diner cannot do anything about them.
Right.
Maybe the broader community and the rallies that they're negotiating about the right and wrong of will someday be able to, but this group doesn't have any power to impact those large-scale economic and justice system features of oppression. So they talk about this and they talk about this, and then eventually there's, what are we going to do? What's this guy going to do? But Wolf says, I don't know. But we're going to try and get him out of jail. And that's sort of the end of the scene. Then somebody else comes in and we move on. But it's this, I find it to just be this lovely little summation of what this group of people is. What are we going to do about all of these huge problems that are putting us under the boot of the economy and of the justice system? I don't know. But what we're going to try to do right now is take care of each other. We can't do anything about that, but we can raise the money to pay his bond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and that like commitment to to relationship and to community in the face of all that is on full display consistently. The other moment that springs to mind for that is there's some buildup of drama around what Sterling is going to do to Wolf when he discovers that he's going to be shorted. He's going to be halved the amount of money that he was expecting to win as a result of having a winning number. And to the point that like Wolf brings it up to the group before Sterling arrives, and he's like, "Do you think I need to go like get my gun for this? Because like,
do I need to be carrying my gun?"
Yeah, because like, is this gonna go south? And everyone's like, "You should maybe go get your gun." So he leaves and goes and gets his gun. And he comes back, and you know that both of these characters have at least probably have weapons, certainly have the ability to exact violence on each other. And this scene happens, and certainly Sterling is angry. Certainly there is some risk in the room around this, but he doesn't go off on Wolf. He goes off, and he gets righteously angry, but he leaves the room and goes and takes it to the mob, we assume, some group of people that run the numbers. And I think, again, that's the choice of like choosing community, still choosing each other. Wolf is kind of caught in the middle of this too and doesn't know exactly how to figure out how to make this system right either. And so there's this intentional choice of like, as far as this community is concerned, we're taking care of each other, and trying to direct that move towards justice in a way, as a result of us all belonging together.
And there's just great little human moments like that. Lou Bellamy, who directed the production at Oregon Shakes, in an interview with him, he says that and he's a director who's done the whole Wilson canon. He's the artistic director of a theater that does more August Wilson than anybody else. I mean, this is a guy that knows his August Wilson. He says that one of the hallmarks of a Wilson drama is that he gives epic proportion to everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
Epic proportion to everyday life. And that is so good. I mean, that's so good. And there's just, this play is that, really, ultimately. The big scale issues that people like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. go down in the history books for fighting against, this group of people is just caught in. And all that they can do really is the taking care of each other. And so like Hambone comes in all the time, right? And Risa gives him free food when he comes in. She gives him lunch. And Memphis is, because of all the other things going on in his life, he eventually in the play decides that he's sort of fed up with feeding Hambone for free. So he forces Hambone to pay for his lunch one day, which he bought a bowl of soup. Or I forget exactly what he bought. He bought something, right? And then in the aftermath of doing that, even Memphis, the kind of calcified, grumpy older character, is like, all right, give him a bunch of extra food.
Right.
Give him an extra piece of cornbread. Give him a refill on his soup bowl. Get him a cup of coffee. So even in the like, I have to force you to pay for your meal, I'm done being freeloaded, he still is giving generously Hambone this extra stuff.
Yeah, that's absolutely this kind of like generosity of spirit, even in the midst of the crankiness. I think the way that like money is talked about in this play is really interesting, because a lot of the play is about money. A lot of the play is about trying to get the money for the land, the money to have enough money for Sterling and Risa to get married, the money associated with the betting ring and all that. I think that there's another really interesting way money is talked about, and that has to do with Aunt Esther, this like throwing away money into the river.
Which, again, I don't think anybody makes directly in the play this comparison, but it's not like a keen observation by me. This is a fairly obvious comparison. But Prophet Samuel, right, what does he do? He has people bring him money, and he's become very wealthy as a result of that. Mm-hmm. If you go see Aunt Esther, she tells you to go throw the money in the river.
Right. And there's like, I think at one point there's some wondering about like, what's the point of it? Where does that money go? Is it downriver somewhere?
West, the funeral director, tells the story. Again, this play's full of stories. It's the great storytelling Wilson play. It's amazing for that reason. West tells his story of going to see her and how when she told him to throw the money in the river, he just outright refused to waste money like that. And his telling of the story is like, I tried to give her the money.
Right.
I was fine. The money's not the issue. I'm fine to pay the money, but I'm not throwing it in the river.
Throwing it away.
So I tried to pay her and she wouldn't take it. She said, go throw it in the river.
Yeah. But I love that facet, or at least that viewpoint being included in this play, because correctly, so much of this play talks about money and access to money, and sort of generational wealth is a part of this too, with land, and reparations are part of this as well. So money is a way to justice. Absolutely. It's nice as well to note that, you know, the empirical structure runs on money. And so, like, the person who tells you how to solve a lot of your problems, when all the other ways that you try to solve your problems don't work out, you go to Aunt Esther and she says, decouple yourself from the capitalist mindset and chuck it in the river.
And I don't even quite know what to make of this, honestly, but Memphis, so I have painted Memphis's story, perhaps because of the analysis I'm trying to present of the play, as about the fact that he hired a white lawyer, and that the racism of the system, all of a sudden now he's benefiting from having a white lawyer as opposed to a black one, in terms of navigating the justice system and the unfairness and racism and oppression of that. But that's not the only thing that changes between his different attempts to get money, but to get the money he's owed for his restaurant. Between the first time he goes for the 15 that they offer him and the 35 that he gets at the end, he also has a little bit of a change of heart about going to see her, and does. I mean, he's been very anti, pretty much both Prophet Samuel and her, for the whole of the play. He thinks it's all crazy. He can't believe they believe that she's 300 and some years old. He can't believe that they throw money in the river. But I don't know, you know, the accumulated desperation of trying to get what he's owed for the building, the fact that he, you know, depending on what happens with this, he doesn't really have a path forward in his life after they raise the restaurant, raise it to the ground. I mean, you know, he decides he's going to go see her, and he does. And he wins.
Yeah. Interesting. Absolutely. There's so many little pockets of this play. This play has so many stories, so many individual character moments. We have barely scratched the surface.
It's the kind of play, and not all plays are like this, but it's the kind of play where when you look at the production photos, you can tell right away who each actor is.
Yeah.
Because the characters are, the personalities are so fully fleshed. It's like why, when I was doing the context section, I talked about Samuel L. Jackson as Wolf. Like, there's nothing more perfect than that casting. And that, he is Wolf. Wolf is a Samuel L. Jackson kind of guy.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, no, it's a visually stunning play, and the production photos that I've seen as well. Certainly the performance and the language is all there, as we would expect from any August Wilson play. So definitely we would love to keep chatting about this play. Alas, we are at the end of our particular time for it on this episode. We don't have to stop talking about it, though. We'd love to have you all join the conversation. You can find us on the social medias at the username @NoScriptPodcast. We also have a Gmail, noscriptpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on any of those sites. We'd love to keep talking about Two Trains Running with you.
If you enjoyed our conversation, first of all, check out the links in our script notes to other conversations. That's a great place to go next if you're interested. And then, hey, recommend us if you would, to your family, your friends, anybody you know that likes theater, that likes conversations around storytelling, around writing, around characters, themes, acting, theater, all that stuff. This is a great podcast for them. We are more than 300 episodes deep into our library, so they got a lot that they could check out. Chances are there's a play or a musical in our conversations that they know and that they would love to hear more conversation about. So send them our way. They can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all the places you get your podcasts. You can also, if you don't want to navigate various apps, if you just have a Facebook, on our Facebook page, every Monday when we publish, there's a link. You just can click it and play it right from there. And that'll get you over to where our podcast plays. We are back next week with another great conversation about another great script. Until then, I'm Jacob here with Jackson. Thanks for joining us for No Script, the podcast.